Okay, welcome back to episode number 3 of Behind the Ball. Last night saw the Ballon d'Or take place. Zach, I heard you're not too happy about it all.
No, I was just really disappointed by it. Kind of from Real Madrid throwing their toys out the pram, because Vinicius Junior wasn't winning. To kind of the rankings as a whole, I thought were odd and incorrect. And then congratulations to Rodri because he deserved to win it. I'm sure he's really pleased that I've told him congratulations. But I feel like it's a statement on where football is at the moment that Rodri's won the Ballon d'Or. Kind of what did you think?
Yeah, I think it kind of just left a sour taste in my mouth and kind of everyone's mouth. As you say, Real Madrid not turning up is disgrace in itself. You can't not turn up just because one of your players isn't going to win obviously the Ballon d'Or itself. It's been made apparent that obviously Messi and Ronaldo turned up every single time, and I didn't know this until this Ballon d'Or ceremony, but they actually knew who was going to win before the event. So
the whole thing is just it's gone really poorly. Man City finding out that Rodri was going to win and telling Real Madrid, it's low level shithousery that I quite like, but also it's an award ceremony. You shouldn't know who's won before you turn up. It's it ruins the whole thing because everyone sat there knowing what's going to happen. And as you said, you'd Ronaldo and Messi turning up, clapping each other when each other won and when they lost, and kind of taking it on the chin. And it's footballers are role models, and they're showing to kids how to lose, and they're showing it's really poor because they're not being gracious in defeat. And that's also not to say Real Madrid didn't win anything. Ancelotti won Best Manager of the Year. Mbappe got the joint. Won the same trophy that Harry Kane won. They were joint, but obviously Mbappe didn't turn up. Real Madrid won Best Team. They didn't win one thing. I understand it's the Ballon d'Or, but it's so wrong. And yeah, it's really got on my nerves if you can't tell.
Yeah, no, it's like I think you mentioned the role models thing. Like, even when you're playing like Saturday League or you play a tournament when you're in under 8s, under 9s. If I didn't win the tournament, I still stayed and clapped and I got my silver medal and whatever it was. If there was a team there that came second after losing in the final, essentially, and then they all just went home and threw a massive paddy and didn't turn up to that like ceremony at the end, you'd be like, what on earth are they doing? The parents are really poor, coaches, you've got to make sure that kids understand that losing's part of the game. There's a way to lose and all of those things. And yeah, this is just really poor, especially when they've won other events. Like if Vinny obviously didn't win the actual Ballon d'Or itself, and then Real Madrid didn't win any of the other competitions,
you can kind of understand
I can start to reason it and be like, look, it's a pointless journey. They travel a lot of the time. They don't want to put in extra travel just for an award ceremony. But if you're going to turn up when you're going to win the event, you've got to turn up if you're going to not win the event. Do you know what I mean? As you say, it was poor. I think that it doesn't do Vinny any good because I don't know whether there was a couple of other bits. He seems like quite frustrated at football as a whole. Obviously, he's fighting racism incidents quite a lot. And yeah, it seems quite unfavoured with a lot of the the organisers, if you will. So I don't know whether it was kind of like a statement towards them, but I don't know. It didn't come across well. It certainly didn't come across like that. It just came across like a baby throwing his toys out the pram.
But also, another thing, it's not like he's been like by far and away the best player in the world. He's been outscored by Giroud and Mateta this season. It's not like everyone's sat down and gone, there is no way Vinicius Junior cannot win it. He's had a very good year. Well, I don't think he's been the best player. I think Rodri's had a bigger impact. You could argue last season Ballon was the star of Real Madrid, not Vinicius Junior. So, yeah, as I said, it's not like Messi in it. He's not Messi playing Sunday League. It's you are one of the best players in the world, but probably you weren't the best player this year.
Yeah, there's not undeniable proof to say, yeah, he should have won. And I think even if you go back a couple of years, Ronaldo in 2018 didn't win the Ballon d'Or, despite scoring the amazing bicycle kick against Juve that year. Played really well at the Euros. Obviously, Portugal didn't win anything, but he won the Champions League, moved to Juve, didn't start like as electrifying as we know Ronaldo can be, and obviously was during that period anyway. He lost the Ballon d'Or to Modric. And to me, that was way more controversial. And for me, that's way more of an injustice than this one is. Rodri is the most important player in the best team in the world. Therefore, he wins the Ballon d'Or.
He's still such an integral part of Man City. And yes, it doesn't come into consideration, like the fact that they won the treble last season, but they did, and he was such an integral part of that. And then he was such an integral part of Man City. And then you can see kind of not the fall off of Man City, but you can see kind of they're not playing as well without him. He's integral to that. He's integral to the best team in England, arguably the best team in the world. Whereas Vinicius Jr., Real Madrid's front three at the moment is 2 left wingers and a central midfielder. Yes, Real Madrid did the double last season. It's a lesser league. Yes, I mean, the double, they won a league and the Champions League. I just don't think Vinicius Jr. should have won it, and I think it's kind of fair. But I mean, kind of, where kind of this big fall off is like of the Ballon d'Or as a whole. I mean, the rankings were horrific.
I think we saw a drop off with the Ballon d'Or when Jorginho was in contention to win it. Not anything against Jorginho, but he was only there because he won certain accolades. Obviously, he won the Euros and won the Champions League, and that was enough to put him in the shoehorn for the conversation for the Ballon d'Or. Top 10, definitely. Top 3, maybe, sort of thing. He was not even the best player at Chelsea during that time. I think we've kind of lost our way with the Ballon d'Or. It's meant to be, in my opinion anyway, the best player on the planet, not who won the most that year and also happened to play quite well. Because 𝗕𝗲𝗵𝗶, again, great player. Is he top 5 in the world? Probably not.
He's a right back.
Is he the best right back even? I don't know. But you can't be there just because your team happened to win certain competitions or, did well in certain things. I don't think that's right. I think it's an individual competition for a reason. Just because you won things with your team shouldn't necessarily transfer over to that. And obviously we saw that with a couple of the other rankings. I know you weren't too happy with your boy 𝗕𝗲𝗵𝗶's placement either.
I mean, the accusation's been thrown at me that I see 𝗕𝗲𝗵𝗶 when I sleep. But the fact he's 25th in the Ballon d'Or is ridiculous. You're telling me there are 24 other people in the world that had a better season than 𝗕𝗲𝗵𝗶. They simply didn't. I mean, Granit Xhaka's 16th. Yeah, he went invincible. He's not better than 𝗕𝗲𝗵𝗶. Ademola Lookman, good season, not better than 𝗕𝗲𝗵𝗶. Dani Carvajal, as I said, he's a right back. He's not better than 𝗕𝗲𝗵𝗶.
Yeah, I know. And we saw like Foden, who was voted the best player in the Prem last season and everything, 11th.
Yeah.
What does that say about a couple of the other things? Haaland, okay, he was injured for a little bit last season as well. He only came in 5th. I mean, we're literally talking about someone who smashed the goal scoring record in the Premier League coming over, then backed that up with another season where he finished top goal scorer.
But also, as you just said, Phil Foden was named the best player in the Premier League last season. His Man City teammate won the Ballon d'Or. Work that one out. Like, yes, Rodri had a better season. Rodri deserved to win the Ballon d'Or. Phil Foden was 11th, yet apparently last season he was Man City's best player. So it doesn't make sense. Yes, I mean, there's journalists voting on it, but I mean, come on, like, Lautaro Martinez, 7th. Lautaro Martinez is not the 7th best player in the world. I mean, I don't know about you, but for me, Martinez, he's good, but he's one of those players. He's a bit like Donnarumma. He's a bit like Ousmane Dembele. Everyone says they're really good. You watch them play football. I just don't see it. I really don't see it. This has really annoyed me because I mean, Saka didn't have a better season than Palmer, and he's above him. It's just,
and like Mbappe, whatever you think about him, he scored. As you say, he was joint with Kane for that. I think it's the 𝗕𝗲𝗵𝗶 trophy, or like essentially the European Golden Boot, whatever it is. Finished 6th in the Ballon d'Or. I don't understand how that can be. I don't get that. I know it's voted for by journalists, and there's a couple of like political things around it. We've seen that when obviously Messi and Ronaldo's votes come out, and they voted for like Mane or someone. Yeah. Messi's never been in Ronaldo's top 3, and kind of all those sorts of things. So I know it's never going to be truly accurate, but it is meant to be. This is where everyone comes together and decides who is like categorically the best player in the world. And then obviously the rankings further down from that are meant to be a true reflection. And I think we've completely lost our way. Going away from the rankings slightly, as you say, the whole event was a bit unprofessional. I mean, we got Speed live streaming in the crowd. Whatever you think of that, it's probably not a great sign for the professionalism of the actual award ceremony. And then we've got Vinny's name being chanted whilst it's going on. I mean, as a Ronaldo fan, I would have cried if that had happened to him
Yeah.
during one of his Ballon d'Or ceremonies. Everyone chanting Messi, or even worse, obviously, someone other than Messi.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know.
As Rodri's being announced, it's a bit embarrassing. Kind of Rodri's worked so hard. He's had such a good season, and then to be jeered at, to be heckled at, like as probably the best moment in his career, potentially ever, and it's been overshadowed by Real Madrid and their antics. It's really poor. Another thing that I found slightly confusing, going on a bit of a tangent, kind of for the men's Ballon d'Or, they had George Weah announcing it. Kind of legend of football, legend of men's football, absolute icon. And then for the women's Ballon d'Or, they had Natalie Portman for some reason. I mean, it's a complete tangent, but it's really confused me.
Yeah, and we saw the women's Ballon d'Or be disrespected a couple of years ago as well. Woman went on stage and got asked, like, do you or can you twerk? I mean, like, what is that? This is literally the pinnacle of her career, and you're asking her like the most disrespectful. Well, not the most, but obviously a very disrespectful and sexist comment. I just think it is a real loss and a real like.
It's lost its way.
Yeah, I don't want to say it, but game's gone almost with the Ballon d'Or. Like, I don't like the rankings. I don't really like the deciphering of who's won it. I don't really like the professionalism of the whole event itself. So for what it's supposed to be as well, as I say, football's like the biggest awards night in football. The only one which most people really care about as well. Obviously, if you're in the Prem, you care about who won Player of PFA awards night and stuff. But this is literally the only other one. It's the only one where everyone around the world watches. And yeah, don't know, just felt like a real loss for football.
Yeah, kind of we've sat here and we've slated the rankings. I want to know what would be your top 5 for the Ballon d'Or if you were voting.
Yeah, so I probably would have gone top 5. I think Rodri deserves to win it. He is the most important player in the best team in the world. And he's also really good. Like, there's no getting away from that. It's not as he's just a system player and he happens to be in the best team. He has also put in, like, magnificent performances. I would probably put Haaland second for me still. He was injured for a little bit during, like, the year. But I think over the last, like, 2 seasons or so, we've seen that he is just that good. And he probably is the second best player in the world for me. I think down from that, we kind of start to contend with your Vinny Juniors and 𝗕𝗲𝗵𝗶 as well. So I'd probably say Rodri 1, Haaland 2, Vinny 3, Mbappe 4, Palmer 5 would be my top 5. What about yourself?
I mean, yeah, that's shockingly close to my list. Actually, I've got Rodri winning it. As I mentioned, he deserved to win it. I've still got Vinicius Junior second, and then I've gone Haaland third because, as you said, just prolific goal scorer. Kind of, he's a bit of a weird one because he's not. He's by far and away the best goal scorer in the world. Like, he's prolific, but kind of technically, I mean, Roy. It's an extreme example. Roy Keane said he's a League One ability footballer. I mean, he's not, but it's kind of. His shooting is so far and away better than kind of everything else. It's a weird one. I mean, he is probably the third best player in the world. So yeah, I've got Haaland third, Mbappe fourth, and 𝗕𝗲𝗵𝗶 fifth. I think. I mean, you know my thoughts on 𝗕𝗲𝗵𝗶. I think the boy's magnificent. I think we are looking at a future Ballon d'Or winner. If he keeps his level and kind of Chelsea start to progress a bit more. But yeah, similar lists.
Right, so moving on to the other big news this week was obviously our mate Erik ten Hag's been sacked by Manchester United. What were your initial thoughts?
I think it had to happen. Kind of, the writing was on the wall. The West Ham result wasn't great. I mean, the penalty, I'm still looking to find out how that was a penalty because. I mean, it was a ridiculous decision. But, I mean, even if they won, he probably would have been and should have been sacked. I think it's not a good look for Man United. I mean, they gave him new contract, spent a load of money for players for him to sack him 9 games after it was kind of everyone thought he was going to be sacked. And then, so now you've got this whole couple of players that a new manager's probably might not want. I mean, players like Lenny Yoro are very good. But kind of other players like that, I think they've got themselves in a bit of a sticky situation. What about you?
Yeah, I think Manchester United made a huge mistake last season. I think they were caught off guard with the fact that they won the FA Cup and they had to kind of reward that within the group of the coach and the players they had there. And the only way they could really do that was by keeping Ten Hag. But I think that they should have gone, okay, if we keep him for one more season or so, what else is that going to look like further down the line? And I just don't think they look past the last 3 months. I can't understand why they kept a hold of him and invested, and then they've gotten rid of him this quickly. Because although there's been poor results, obviously the West Ham one being the final one, if you look at the context within that, it was a last-minute penalty which probably shouldn't have been given. So it was let's say that was a 1-1 game. One of the other results that obviously led to it was the 𝗕𝗹𝗵𝗶 draw 1-1. Again, fairly tame, poor performance. I think the main one and the biggest one that started the whole conversation was the Spurs 3-0. I could have seen all of these happening before they happened. I don't understand how the boardroom at Manchester United haven't come to that conclusion as well, to the point where obviously, as you say, they're giving him the extension, and now they're going to have to pay. I think it's a £17 million payout. So that's pretty much either a player or half of what would be a decent player at that level as well. I can't understand why they kept him, as I said. I think when you look at Ten Hag's reign as United manager as a whole, I do think it's a grey cloud. There's been so many downs and not too many ups, I'd have to say. I think they had the fallout with Ronaldo and Sancho. You've got the plethora of failed transfers. If you look at just here, Anthony, massive signing, £80 million, not worked out.
No.
Casemiro, similar figure, probably not going to be around for much longer. He'll probably go at the end of this year. Was only really good in his first season, and we've seen a very, very, very steep decline. Mason Mount's also up there. Some of that isn't Ten Hag's fault. Obviously, he won't have the say of, okay, I want Mount, and let's just bypass the fact that we want him on the 6-month contract and all that. But he's putting that towards someone else. I imagine so anyway, of the director of football or whatever it is. And then they're the ones that are making, and obviously the higher ups at the club are then making that decision to go for these players. But ultimately it does start with what I'd imagine to be Ten Hag going to them with these players. And I don't think enough of them have worked out.
No, and it was kind of, with going back to Mount, I always thought it was a bit weird because they've got Bruno Fernandes. They didn't need Mount. Players like Casemiro they needed, and kind of because they needed a DM, and then he was good for the first season, and then kind of he's had quite a sharp fall off, and then kind of 𝗕𝗹𝗵𝗶 is failing to look like a good footballer, and then I feel bad for players like Ahmad. I really like Ahmad. I think he's really talented, and kind of. He's got to be looking at that situation thinking, what more do I have to do to get into this team? Because, I mean, Rashford's not performing. Anthony's Anthony. And he's kind of... And we saw the pictures of kind of, as he was coming, he looked fuming. And I get it. I think they kind of... They've shot themselves in the foot. They've bought so many players that it's kind of like, we need to play these players because of how much money they've cost. Then you've got players like Ahmad, who's always performs really. He's the main reason they beat Liverpool in the Carabao Cup. And kind of you've got talented players sitting around thinking, what more do I have to do?
Yeah, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why the squad always seems to be so unsettled as well. And that's one of the things he's obviously struggled with. I mentioned the Ronaldo and Sancho things as well. But there's constantly things coming out in the press of he's not happy, this person's not happy, this coach said this about Ten Hag, and kind of all of those things. I think it was the right time to let him go because it was failing so drastically.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you haven't got obviously they do have a replacement lined up, it seems, but why would you let him spend the money then? That's what I don't understand.
Yeah.
Would you not save it till January to see if he can actually last that long with the players he's currently got? Some of the players he's brought in, as you say, 𝗕𝗹𝗵𝗶 this summer, doesn't look like he's going to set the world alight right now. You got 𝗕𝗹𝗵𝗃, who's struggling to find a game as well. As I say, I said it before, I don't understand Man United's transfer policy. And I think the sacking kind of only reaffirms that they don't even know what their transfer policy / kind of trying to think of like the pathway to success over the next couple of years. It doesn't seem like they know what they're doing as of right now. Do you reckon that could change with the new manager?
This merry-go-round of new manager, he's going to be amazing. I actually do quite like 𝗕𝗵𝗵𝗶. I've said it before. I like managers that play with a back three, but his 3-4-2-1 formation. It's like it's not a perfect fit. Like, where does Bruno Fernandes sit in that? Because he's not a winger. I mean, he probably could play it, and I think that's probably where he will play. But then he's also not like a number 6. So I think I like 𝗕𝗵𝗵𝗶, but I don't know if stylistically it's the right fit.
Yeah, and we saw. I think this is the problem, as you say, kind of going around in a circle, because when Ten Hag came in, it was brilliant. We're going to get this new brand of football. Oh, we can't wait. And credit to you Man United fans. They have stuck with Ten Hag for some extremely, extremely embarrassing moments. I mean, you talk about the banter era that happened at Arsenal, obviously, for a period of time, and kind of at United now. Just reading these out. 3-0 loss at home to Bournemouth. Bottom of their Champions League group. 4-0 against Palace away. 3-0 defeat at Liverpool at home. 3-0 loss to Spurs at home this season. Lost 4-0 to Brentford. Lost 7-0 to Liverpool. I mean, all of those, obviously, they're not sacking like criteria almost, but that's severe embarrassment over a prolonged period of time, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you say it's not sacking material, but I think there has to be certain principles. You can't lose 7-0 to Liverpool. That must, in my head, if I'm a football club owner, it's like that should be a huge kind of red flag, red card even. But clubs have to have principles. Like you can't be embarrassed like that against Liverpool. And yeah, it's weird. It feels like the writing's always been on the wall. It's always been a matter of when and not if. And so you said that you think it's the right decision to sack him now. I think they should have sacked him a long time ago.
Yeah, and I think obviously I'm saying sack him now in terms of obviously he was staying, he did sign the contract, but I would have got rid of him in the summer because I just thought that was a natural end to it all. But yeah, I agree with you. I think he probably should have gone before that. There's definitely a case for it. I think the other thing that really hasn't helped Ten Hag is, as he said, when he was coming in, new style, they just became a transition team.
Yeah.
It became, can we hit teams on the break? Their possession stats went way down. Their attacking stats went way down. One thing I'll give him credit for, he did shore up the defence, especially at a time when you had obviously senior players like Maguire kind of going out of the squad. That's always going to be hard to maintain a solid back line. And obviously with Luke Shaw being so injury prone, Malacia being out for a long period of time as well. I think he did well to shore up that defence. I think Onana has been like a kind of a shining light as well.
Yeah.
And that is a Ten Hag W essentially. As someone who's brought in and has done well and is looking that he'll do better as well. But yeah, I think if 𝗕𝗵𝗵𝗶's to come in, obviously results is number one, but I think what we've seen with Arteta and Arsenal as well is even when they were losing towards the start of his reign, people could kind of go, but we look like we're playing better. Like I can sort of see what we're trying to do. Yeah. We don't have the players for it right now. I think with Man United, what kind of happened towards the end especially is it doesn't matter who we buy. We don't have the players for our own system, let alone a system. So where do we go from here? And I think that's what you saw with obviously crowds leaving early because it's just not fun to watch. You don't want to be there. If you're watching your team just get pumped, obviously the Spurs game was like a big one. 3-0, not even that many, obviously the game wasn't done essentially within the scoreline that early in the game. People were just uninterested. United fans left so early because they knew what was going to happen and they knew the type of performance they were going to see.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair to the Man United fans, it is a long trip up from London. So, moving on, kind of a bit happier. Nottingham Forest, they've been kind of the surprise package of the Premier League so far. They've done really well. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I was currently sitting 7th in the table. Only 3 points above Spurs, 5 points above United. I mean, it's always hard at the start of the season because if you get 3 wins, all of a sudden you're on 9 points, and that will put you in the top half regardless of what's going on. And then obviously you can kind of end up being in one of the Europe spots, but it's so early that people don't tend to kind of go, but we've got to look out for them this season. But I think I heard this heard this on commentary, but I think we're almost 25% through the season now. Forest staying 7th, that's really good. And I think what Nuno's done is he's such a good defensive coach. He makes teams so solid. If you remember his Wolves team from back in the day, City really, really struggled against them because they're so pragmatic. With Chris Wood now up front, 7 goals this season already, looks like they can actually cause teams some problems.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think they've been really shrewd with their business as well. I mean, Hudson-Odoi for $5 million is an absolute steal. He's really good. I mean, if you look at kind of, well, not now with Pedro Neto, but if you kind of last season, if you looked at Chelsea's left wingers, you think probably would, if he had stayed, he would be the best left winger there. And then kind of Elliot Anderson. I mean, that's got to go down as well for Forest, an unbelievable bit of business, and for Newcastle, it's horrible. I mean, they got 𝗕𝗹𝗵𝗶 back, going the other way as a third choice keeper or something. And Elliot Anderson's been fantastic this season.
Yeah, I mean, Elliot Anderson, he was on loan at Bristol Rovers a couple of seasons ago when they went up, obviously famously a 7-0 victory at the final game of the season to get them up. I spoke to a couple of Rovers fans. They all talk about him like he was literally the best player they've ever seen at the club, if not one of the best players they've seen in League Two sort of thing. Gary Neville mentioned it when he played against Salford for Bristol Rovers. He was like, oh my God, there's a serious player here. When he's come on for Newcastle, sometimes he's gone, there is a player here.
Yeah.
And the fact that they were so willing to almost let him go, I imagine obviously at this point in his career, he just wants game time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that is going to be someone that Forest can either kind of champion and lead them forward, or can obviously sell on for a bit of big profit as well.
Yeah, I mean, he did cost. It was like 50-60 million, and kind of when that happened, I looked at it. I mean, he's good, but it's kind of, that's a lot of money. But then kind of he's living up to his price tag. I mean, they mentioned it on Match of the Day. Kind of, well, the kind of Morgan Gibbs-White kind of, he's not losing his place in the team, but he's going to struggle because Anderson has been so good. Again, kind of throwing it back to Man United, they've lost Elanga to Forest as well. He's been really good. I really like Forest's team.
Yeah, no, they've got a really likeable team. Again, I'm a big fan of Elanga as well. I was absolutely stunned that United got rid of him because during their kind of, when they were going down slightly, I thought that he actually looked like a bit of a shining star. But yeah, no, he definitely causes problems. As I say, the problem Forest might have is they do play very defensive football. Yeah. I think, as I got here, ranked 19th for possession in the league, only 40%-ish. Only Everton have less, and that's obviously a very defensive Sean Dyche team as well. So if the goals dry up slightly, I think they might be on the receiving end of a couple draws and losses.
Yeah.
But I can't see this Forest team falling down the table rapidly, because I think they are a strong, organised team that won't just ship goals and will cause big teams big problems.
Yeah, I mean, even their defence is really solid. You've got Murillo, who kind of clubs are after him for, like, again, 50-60 million. Like, they've built a really nice team there, and kind of if they can stick together, they can kind of they could easily mount kind of probably a Conference League charge. But I mean, they're a very good team.
Yeah, and I think that one of the other things as well, we've got to remember, they beat Liverpool.
Yeah.
One of the only teams to beat Arne Slot's Liverpool. I think maybe the only team. Yeah. So that says a lot as well.
At Anfield as well.
At Anfield, which does not happen.
No.
So, I mean, yeah, we'll have to keep an eye out for Forest this season. Do not go underestimating them.
No. And kind of a team that is failing to kind of live up to the hype. And just Spurs find themselves in 8th, kind of struggling a little bit. Solanke not currently living up to the kind of the big price tag. What have you made of them? Yeah,
Spurs have not had an explosive start, to say the least. They looked a bit better in a couple of the more recent games. Obviously, the 3-0 result against United was a good result as well. But they gave Palace the first win of the season, and Palace have not started
Palace
well
have been horrible
at all. We've got a Palace friend, has not been very complimentary of Palace at all. So, you know, we know that there's a couple of problems there. Also lost to Arsenal, Brighton and Newcastle. I mean, look, they're not relegation teams that they're losing to. Let's give them some respect. I mean, out of those, you've got Newcastle, who probably should be doing better than they are. Brighton, obviously, in and around the top 7. So you can kind of go, that's going to be a tough game no matter what. Arsenal, one of the top 3 teams in the Prem. Again, not the worst result ever. I think what Ange has done is he was so confident in pre-season of like, this is when we win trophies, this is when this happens, this is when the flower comes out sort of thing. Right now we're not seeing that. And if they can't, the problem Spurs have is obviously they're known as bottlers and things like that. But if they can't get wins and if they can't get over the line, I can't see what's going to change from this season from last season.
No, and kind of, I just think, I don't know where they're going wrong, because on paper their team is good. It's quite a nice team. I think Maddison is he's not letting the side down, but he's kind of 50 million quid, came with big money, had a really good start, and it's kind of Kulusevski is outshining him tenfold. I think kind of he's struggling to get into the team. I think they've got some really good young players, kind of Archie Gray, Lucas 𝗕𝗹𝗹. They've been really good. They've kind of been like bright shining stars. They look fantastic, and they look like they're going to be really good players for the future. I think they do lack a little bit of depth, kind of for kind of, as they progress in Europa League and things like that. I mean, Spurs should be looking at the Europa League and going, realistically, we can win this. But I don't think they will, and I don't think they can.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to put my Spurs cap on almost. If I was a Spurs fan, I would want to win the Europa League, because there's not enough silverware at the club for what they've done over the last 10 years especially. I think they just need to get the first one, break the duck, and then you can sort of go from there. I think what kind of has helped Arsenal through their rise at the minute is the fact that even in like the banter era and things like that, they still won FA Cups.
Yeah.
They still were winning silverware, and that Spurs don't have that, unfortunately. I think Solanke, as you say, hasn't hit the ground like sprinting. I don't want to say running, because he looks good when he's playing. I think it's kind of a case of just wait. The goals will come eventually. I do not doubt at all he will get above 10 goals in the Prem this season easily.
Yeah.
And you got, as you say, Kulusevski on the right putting in his best performances as well. There is something for Spurs. I think what's important to remember is they've also got the second highest XG in the Premier League right now, only second to Man City. So if they can start to convert some more of their chances, shore up at the back a little bit, because they don't keep a lot of clean sheets, only 2 so far. Compared to the other top teams, not too much. But obviously, with a couple of added bits of context, things like Arsenal's red cards and such, I think you'll kind of see that balance out over the year. So I think Spurs have got to keep it up going forward, shore up a bit defensively.
Big question is, as you mentioned, Ange said in the second year we win trophies. Will they?
I think if they are, it's going to be the Europa League, but I don't know what it is. I'm just not confident. I don't think even Spurs fans would bet on themselves winning silverware in any season almost, because it is just unlikely, and it is almost like one of those like cursed football things. It's not. Yeah, it sounds awful to say, but it's just not. And like if you look at it on paper as well, even when they had their like golden era sort of thing with in the modern era, obviously with Kane, Son, and things, on paper they should have won plenty or a couple bits of silverware, and they just didn't. And in my head, that Pochettino side is better than this current Spurs side.
Yeah.
And that Pochettino side didn't win trophies. So why would this Ange team win trophies?
Yeah. I mean, that Pochettino side came third in their own 2-horse race, so kind of really epitomising the Spurs.
That wraps up this week's episode. And don't forget, get behind the ball.